The World Class Community Show is designed to bring you the latest talks on community building. Join our host and his guests ranging from leaders at global enterprises to niche underground community builders. In these episodes, they discuss the creation, the importance, the future, and much more about community building. If you're ready to learn the depths of attracting and engaging crowds around your brand, then make sure to tune in.
Welcome to the World Class Community Show, where we invite expert community builders to share their experiences, knowledge, and expertise they've built up through the years. Our guest today is Vincent Boon, CEO and founder of Standing on Giants. He was previously giffgaff's chief of community and a globally known pioneer, as well as an expert in the field of community management. Welcome, Vincent.
Thank you, Niels, and thank you for having me.
Glad to be here. Awesome. You're from the Netherlands originally, but now you live in London, right?
Yeah, gosh, I moved over to England in 2002, I think it was. Yeah.
Okay, so it's the 20-year anniversary.
Yeah. yeah, it's been a while. But, very awesome. Enjoyable here. So, yeah, pretty much completely built my career here. Never, did any kind of like thing in my field in the Netherlands. So it's always been here in England. So, yeah.
Okay, and how was the move to England? I know you have quite an exciting story about your first community building experiences when you moved to England.
Yeah, yeah. Well, back when I moved, I used to, like when I was living in the Netherlands, I used to have kind of like a relatively regular kind of like poker game. That I played with my brother and my brother-in-law, and just a bunch of friends around us, and we played poker every now and then, and I always quite enjoyed it. And so when I moved over to England, that was one of the things I was kind of like missing, and I was kind of like, this was before poker became a big craze, so living in London, kind of like looking around, seeing if I could find people to play poker with, and started on a platform called meetup.com, which is still around. And back in the day, kind of like set up the London Poker Meetup Club. And we started off with like 4 people meeting up in a pub and just, playing a few hands just for fun. And that eventually grew out to cover about 100,000, 150,000 people that had signed up to, the London Poker Meetup Club. And we were taking over, pubs, and we were getting kicked out every time because the landlords were really scared that we were like creating an illegal gambling den. But back in those days, the legality of playing poker was still kind of like, up in the air. So it was all okay. But we just moved from pub to pub and basically pretty much completely took them over whenever we had a poker night. That many people showed up, and it was really good fun. It was really, really nice. And that kind of led me to my very first job, because I was doing this kind of like online community building in my free time, as well as I was doing this for like, particular computer games that I was working or that I was playing. And so while I was kind of like doing this, I was working for a company called Eidos. And Eidos are a computer games producer, and they created games like, Tomb Raider, right? Pretty famous Lara Croft, Hitman, Commandos, Championship Manager, a whole bunch of kind of quite pretty famous kind of games. And I was, really enjoying that. And I was asked to kind of like look after this game called Championship Manager online, which was purely about football or soccer, as they say in America. And I was never really a big fan, right? So for me, it was kind of hard to test that kind of game because I didn't really, know enough about, all the intricacies of managing, football teams and actually noticing when something would go wrong and all of that kind of stuff. But I did know that we had a huge community of people like super excited about these games. So I worked with the producer and marketing department to kind of like go out there and recruit from our base of fans, people who actually wanted to help me out test this game. And we started off with just a couple of hundred people. Literally matched my Test Track Pro database to a website. a little drop down menu saying, what class of bug it was, what the reproduction steps were, basically teaching these people exactly how to test, and write it up the same way we did within the office. And yeah, people were just enjoying playing the game, and that small group of 100 people grew out to 1,000 and to 5,000, and eventually we were testing this game with like 20,000 people, right, who were
Wow.
proper dedicated to testing it. And on top of which, they started creating all kinds of like leagues and ladders, right, within the football structure. So between themselves, which was really fun. And then started creating kind of like, these newspapers with articles about, the results from the latest weekend and all of those kind of good things. And so it was really fun. And I was like talking to them and yeah, kind of like, getting to know them and finding out all of this cool stuff that was happening behind the scenes. And then working with the producer and the developers to actually, kind of like, yeah, can we add this stuff that the community is doing to the actual game? And yeah, so we did. Community is obviously, very happy that this is happening. The game launches and it's already got, a bulk of people playing it. So it becomes a bit of a success straight away. And that's when it kind of like, the light bulb went off, because this is back in 2004 or something. And I thought, you know what, this is really fun. I want to do more of this. And, and that's kind of where my career then took me. And I moved over to Sony PlayStation. And this was back in the heady days of PlayStation 2. So, still quite early on, PlayStation 2 could go online if you bought a little bit of extra kit. And yeah, we had, games like Formula One and I don't know, SOCOM was a shooter, and yeah, a range of other kind of like games that could go online. And yeah, that grew out again to the PlayStation 3 and 4 and the PSP, and it basically we built out a community covering 10 different languages. And yeah, had sort of like 50 people managing these communities and kind of like everything that happened online, with all the bigger franchises as well. So yeah, we're really looking after everything that the fan base of Sony Computer Entertainment Europe was kind of like doing. And yeah, really enjoyed that, and that eventually led to my first gig at giffgaff, where I
Wow.
came
So
out of the computer games environment and started working in corporate. Yeah. So
that's
that was,
amazing. You still play games?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I still have a PlayStation 5 here, and yeah, still enjoy it. Not so much on the PC anymore. It's harder to keep that up, obviously. And yeah, now with work, I don't have like a piece of a PC anymore. So yeah, it's kind of become, very much console gaming. Yeah, absolutely. But I still work a little
Awesome.
bit
Yeah.
with computer games companies.
Okay.
So every now and then I work with. So I'm working with one game called Quizzle, which is a quiz game. So it's kind of like bringing pub quiz to people at home, and yeah, kind of like doing all the pub quiz questions, which is really fun. And yeah, I was working on an add-on for Arma 4 as well,
Okay.
which is pretty cool, cool kind of game. So yeah, I still kind of like keeping my hands in the computer games industry when I can, but yeah, a lot of it is corporate work for sure.
Okay. So then you made a move to giffgaff. And most, I would say, we're located in Belgium, so we don't know it. Can you explain what giffgaff is?
Yeah, so this was back in 2010. The mobile industry. So the very first iPhone had just come out, so it wasn't really a thing yet. Um, Gosh, but when I started there, I still had a dumb phone, right? The very first thing they gave me was like a BlackBerry, right? Like this is how long long ago this is. and and yeah, the mobile industry, was kind of like a mess. It was very hard to kind of understand your bills, right? They were always trying to sign you up for very long contracts. Customer service was really not good. You'd be on the phone line for, I don't know, half an hour just to get to speak to someone. Yeah, like I said, very long contracts, expensive, all of that kind of stuff. Um, And it was all the major, what's called incumbents, right? The people who actually own the networks. They own the telephone masts out there and all of that kind of stuff. And then giffgaff was, kind of like, being one of the very first, certainly for a company here called Telefonica, um, that was going to do a mobile virtual network, right? So it's called an MVNO, mobile virtual network operator, which basically means it's a piece of software that enables you to run kind of like a mobile network on someone else's infrastructure, right? And so in this case, Telefonica's infrastructure. And so the idea was that we were going to be a virtual network. We would have no presence in shops, right? So this was, again, sort of like, Web 1.0, sort of like, all right, we're going to do this thing, and it's going to only live on the internet, right? And it's going to have no traditional customer service whatsoever. So you couldn't even call. And it was going to be prepay. So you paid, I don't know, 8p for a call, 4p for a text, and we couldn't even charge for data yet. Right, so very simple premise. And I was then asked, can you build a community around this? This is going to help us do a lot of the things that we as a company need to do, right? Especially customer service, because that's kind of like, 40% of the costs, at least for a telco, or certainly was back in the day. And that was kind of like, with that challenge, that premise is kind of what we started off with. So, it was all purely online. Like I said, there was no advertising either. We didn't have budget for, big advertising, TV, radio, any of that. So it's really just online with some banners online, that kind of stuff, and an online community. And so I started kind of like working with that online community straight away. Well, obviously the first question was, how much should we charge for data? Right? Because we couldn't charge for data yet. So, what do we think that is kind of like fair? And that premise, that kind of like openness in which we conversed with, our initial kind of like community members, kind of like set the tone for everything we did. Right. So, when the community or some of the community members didn't like our advertising, then, we'd ask, right? Like, what is it that you don't like about it? Right. And I don't know. They didn't like the pictures of it, or they didn't like the description. So then the challenge would be, all right, well, how would you say it? Right. And then we would get suggestions back, and we would actually, test them live in the field. Turns out, a lot of their suggestions were much better than ours and performed better. So we swapped theirs in for ours. I don't know. They eventually, it came around to, we had a whole path of, especially with the iPhone, right, where the SIM cards became really small. You first got micro SIMs, now you've got nano SIMs. And when we started, we only had the big SIM cards, right? So our distribution model wasn't set up to all of a sudden supply, tiny SIM cards. And so, I don't know, I bought these specific scissors that you could put a big SIM card in, and you snap them, and then a tiny SIM card would come out. And I bought like 5 of those and sent them around to people in the community to basically say, oh, if someone asked, right, oh, does anyone have, a small SIM card? And I don't know, we had people saying like, oh, you can cut them with the scissors, and people would be too scared to do that. Anyway, I sent a bunch of those scissors around, and those scissors started doing round robins, right? Anyone who would ask, the last member who had it would send it to the next one. And so that was really fun. And that eventually became kind of like, a thing within the community to help other people out, creating these kind of like micro SIMs, and that became a whole distribution channel that was actually set up within our own kind of like, order a SIM card from giffgaff. Oh, do you want an Apple one, right? Which is a micro SIM. Then click here, and you would go to a website which was fully created by the community, in which people were signing up to deliver these SIM cards, from their own houses to whoever ordered them. This was all really well built. It was all secure and all of that kind of stuff. So it was really awesome. That eventually happened again when the nano SIMs came out. The same distribution model kind of like showed up. We sent hundreds of thousands of SIM cards out like that. It was amazing. Similarly, we didn't have money for like an app, right? Because we were like a really, kind of like, we had very little money to do this business, right? So we didn't have an app in the store either. Now you couldn't think of that anymore, but back in 2010, 11, that just wasn't really a done thing yet. Anyway, yeah, so the community, like, probably created about 12 different apps or something for us, and some of them you could literally see the local antenna mast, how it was performing, and amazing, all the kind of cool stuff that they could do. Eventually, we hired someone from the community to actually start building our own app. And yeah, they were really involved with everything from marketing to sales to actually product development, because all of our product had completely changed as well. Where, as I said, it was previously, it's still pay as you go, but it's now the same bundle that you would get in a contract. You basically pay up front. So, and the community again kind of came up with that. They let us know, we like all of the stuff that you get in a contract. We just don't want to be stuck to it for like 24 months. We want to pay that up front, and et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, like, it was a really amazing journey, and kind of like what we did there really showed what a community could do when you really kind of like integrate it with what the business does. Really looking at how do you integrate a community and that interest that people have to work with you into the different pillars of the business, and that really led to some amazing results. I mean, in customer acquisition, we were probably around 50% of customer acquisition coming through that community. So, which is absolutely amazing.
Wow.
We were probably having about 90% of all customer service queries being answered by the community. Like the 10% that was left was really kind of like account related things. So things other community members couldn't help with, because only us could kind of like look at their account and say, all right, there's some issues here. But most of the stuff was not even account related, so the community was looking after that. Yeah, I mean, churn numbers, just being part of the community, already reduced churn by something like 30%, and that would go up all the way up to like a 50% churn if they would actually like get some payback, because I added a payback system as well, in terms of if you would contribute something to the community or you bring other people on board, you would get something back from us, right? Only a small token amount, just a token of appreciation. But yeah, and like I said, that got really picked up by companies like Forrester, who kind of like wrote kind of like big case studies around what we kind of did there, and that led to me being able to set up my company called Standing on Giants, and that as a company we started off working straight away with Airbnb, for example, right? Like this pretty big global brand, and we kind of from inception till now we've been managing their community and their strategy, and for the online community, and that's just been an amazing partnership. And we started working with insurance companies, I don't know, electricity, water, banks, I don't know, Lenovo Legion laptops, Art Finder, all kinds of different, types of companies and organizations that had a similar vision to us, where they really wanted to integrate their community with who they were as a company at the core, and that's been really fun. Although actually before we did Standing on Giants in terms of going external and working with companies like Airbnb and whatnot, we did this for Telefonica, the main company where we worked with giffgaff on. Did it for the first couple of years. It was just Telefonica companies. So we actually went around the houses with them, mostly in South America, where we set up kind of like giffgaff clones. So many more kind of like MVNO, companies called it was a 20, that was the brand, and we set them up in Argentina, Ecuador, Mexico, those kind of things. And we also worked on the incumbent brands. So, big brands like Movistar in Argentina or Central America, as well as like Vivo in Brazil. So, all of the really big kind of like, telco companies all over South America. And did a bunch of, kind of like smaller kind of like communities for particular software or hardware that Telefonica was making. So yeah, a really wide variety of different things that we kind of did there until we eventually did the management buyout and started working with Airbnb and Aegeus and a whole bunch of other companies. So yeah, it's been quite a ride, Niels.
Yeah, it's really amazing, and I'm always amazed by the giffgaff story because it shows like really in what you could call like a utility service. Even there, you can build a really
Mm.
powerful community. Were you able to replicate the effect to electricity and water, or was it with different levels of success?
There's always different levels of success, of course, right? Like, the eventually the companies and the brands really want to, need to want to integrate that community as well into everything they do. And
Hmm.
so, how far can you get with that? But overall, the strategy that we've developed on how we manage these communities is very replicable, right? And it really doesn't matter, where in the world you even do that, right? So it's
Okay.
very much a kind of like a methodology on how you manage these people, and yeah, what you kind of like open up within a company, and how you allow people to kind of like come in and start working with you. That's been super replicable, and we've kind of like achieved the same results as we did with giffgaff. A good example of that is a company called Mineo. It's in Japan, and there, yeah, that was, it happened to also be a telco. But yeah, so it's easier obviously to kind of like compare the result from one telco to another, right? If you compare that to with an Airbnb, then your targets are completely different, right?
Hmm.
What you're looking at achieving is a very different kind of thing than what you're doing at a telco. But anyway, Mineo Japan was, yeah, fastest growing telco, 4 years running. Right, again, we were there with them from inception. Yeah, they've got probably about 40% of kind of like their new registrations all come through that community.
Well,
Yeah, again, like, very similar. Like, churn is massively down in comparison to other kind of like telcos. So yeah, again, they're doing amazing things. And yeah, and so yeah, we see this again and again, really dependent on the company and dependent on the results that they want us to get. But yeah, it's very replicable. Yeah, absolutely.
okay, awesome. Imagine a company listening to this episode and say like, okay, I really want to go ahead with standing on giants. How would a basic project look like? So, company comes to you and says, I want to build a community, or is it more
Hmm.
like I want to work on these KPIs? Or
Well, I mean, again, it it really differs, of course, right? Each company comes
Mhm,
comes in with a different approach to these things. But as a company, we supply actual the manpower, right? So people who actually manage your community. So some companies choose to have that as a delivery system, right? And then we work in, I don't know, something like 10 different languages now. So we've got a lot of different language support that we can give this as well.
mm,
So if you're a big enterprise level company and you've got a community in multiple different languages, then something like standing on giants is a very good proposition, right? Where you can kind of get that covered in one go, and it's not customer service that we're offering, right? We're
mhm,
genuinely offering community management, which is at a much different level than the sort of customer service kind of thing, right? The customer service is very separate from the kind of like real community management what you do, right? Where you're really
mhm.
looking to engage with the users and really looking for opportunities within the business to get these users to actually contribute to what the business is doing. And then, yeah, we've got technology as well. So we've got a platform that we can, basically help people with. And then we've got kind of like the training and the consultancy as well, right? So yeah, it's kind of like three pronged, right? You've got the training, consultancy, the actual technical platform, as well as the people. And in that, there's a
Okay.
mix of what people need, right? Some people want to run those communities all by themselves. They don't want our kind of like people power. They're really looking for, okay, well, help us at least with the consultancy and train some of our people, potentially they want the platform, or sometimes they want someone else's platform, right? In that sense, we're kind of like platform agnostic as well, right? We can, our methodology, works regardless of platform. Some platforms make it easier, that's for sure, right? So, like our own platform, for example, it's bursting with statistics, right? And so that's something that for us is really important. We really look at all of the different kind of like ways in which people behave in a community to allow us to kind of understand how it is that they like to interact, right? Because some people are just extremely knowledgeable, right? They're just reading a lot of that community, and they know a lot of that product, but they're not necessarily people who are going out of their way to share that knowledge, right? But by our community management methodology, we do know that they exist, right? And we know who they are. And so we can reach out to them, and we can ask them either one-on-one feedback, or we will ask them to specifically feedback on a particular topic that we have set up, for that. And maybe we just ask them to give thumbs up on particular comments that they really like, right? So we know that they're educated, and the more thumbs up a particular comment gets, the more kind of like value it will give that particular, sentiment or whatever it is, right? And so, these are just, some examples of this, but some people are massively into, customer servicey type stuff, helping out. Others are really good at discussions about, what the future looks like. Yet others are really good with ideas. Some of them are really good at writing, making video blogs, whatever it is, right? There's such variety, right, within a community, and people come from all walks of life, have professions that they do on a daily basis. And so all of those different things are things you can make use of within a community, right? You use people's talents in the way, they enjoy contributing. So it's really about, understanding who's in your community and seeing where the kind of like crossover is with what's happening within your business. And if you can do that, then you create a really kind of like beneficial situation for both, the community member and the business, right? Because then it's really fun to contribute, and then this becomes, much more meaningful, right? And so, that's the kind of stuff that we work on a daily basis for sure.
Yeah, very interesting. Do you even build like these profiles, like you tag members, or is it more like the community managers knew who they are?
Well, like I said, we do multiple things. So this is really kind of like goes deep down into the methodology on how you actually manage communities. We go so far as to create relationship maps. So we actually create those. So we give other people in the team an understanding of what's happening within that community. So you're really talking about I don't know, are people within that community potentially related? Are they friends? Do they always, dislike the brand? Do they really like the brand? Are they always negative? Are they always positive? Are they someone who attracts attention that people listen to? Do they have a lot of connections? So there's lots and lots of different things that you can look at within a community that will give you a sense of, who to talk to in order to allow information to very quickly flow throughout that community. Really, you only have to talk to a few people within that community, and then most of that community will start knowing what was going on. And similarly, like I said, you can also really look at statistics, right? What do people do, right? What are their most prolific actions? That will give you some sense of how they like to interact. And if you then kind of like look at where within that community they like to interact, that probably gives you a sense of, where their kind of expertise lies, right? Or certainly what they enjoy, where that lies. And that kind of like helps you start conversations, give the right information to them and all of that kind of good stuff, right? So I think that's very much part of what we do. Yeah.
Okay. You've been one of the pioneers in enterprise community building. I also know that you're one of the pioneers in Web3. You're very engaged in that. Can you tell a bit about the future of communities, in your opinion?
Yeah, so like I said, really, this is something that I've always tried, right? Within kind of like the very first days at Idols or at PlayStation, and that eventually culminated in kind of like giffgaff being a great example of what is community led business, right? So how do you
Mm.
enable a community to really yes, it's on at times take the lead, but certainly really work and collaborate with a large pool of people. And I think Web3 is taking that even a step further, right? And with the advent of DAOs, right, decentralized autonomous organizations, as a concept was around for a while already. Even before Web3, but Web3 made it a bit more accessible. Certainly through the tool sets that they created, and the whole kind of like tokenization and DeFi and all of that kind of stuff. There was a way to create. I mean, it's almost. I don't know if you're possibly not a big gamer, but there was a system in which you used when you were doing kind of like massive multiplayer role playing games,
Mm.
right? And it was called Dragon Kill Point, right? DKP. And it basically meant if you were a big group, because that was the way it used to be, you needed like 40 people or whatever it is online to kill this massive dragon, right? Now,
Mm.
obviously, when you kill a dragon, it will drop some loot, right? A sword or an axe or, I don't know, a shield or whatever it is, right? A piece of armor. But it wouldn't drop 40 pieces of loot, right? So what you would get is that all of those people that would participate in killing a dragon would get points for that, right? And these would be your dragon kill points. And then eventually, if you killed enough dragons and you had enough points, and it dropped a piece of loot that you liked, then you could say, "Oh, I would like to exchange my points for that piece of loot. Does anyone else want it? No, great, I will get it, and it will cost me those amount of dragon kill points." Which really, in essence, right, is what a DeFi protocol does, right? And so when
Mm.
you get to the idea of a DAO, you can say, all right, well, we are building something together as a community, right? And we all have a voice, right, in where this project goes. And in fact, if you want to contribute, you will get some dragon kill points, or in this case, tokens, right? And
Mm.
the more people who are involved in building this project, the more valuable these tokens become, right? And then and then people can buy these tokens and yada yada yada, and then you get extra value. But really, the essence of it is still, you get a certain amount of tokens for doing a particular action, right? And then you can spend those tokens on other things. And I think the idea of DAOs, actually working is highly exciting to me. I'm not saying there's many of them working yet, right? Because essentially it is, a community management program, and Web3 isn't necessarily set up for that. It's very good for
Mhm.
for hyping particular, I don't know, coins or NFTs and all of that kind of stuff. But then when it comes to the actual work and actually, working with a community to create something, that still needs to really kind of like be shown. And there is some of that where that it's working, which is pretty cool. Um, and so look, my hope is that more and more companies go the route of decentralized organization or a somewhat decentralized organization, right?
Mhm.
Progressively more DAO, so to speak. Um, and look, I think it will take a while, right? As with any of these things, at the moment the tools are being created, and there's some, early kind of like people working on it. But I do think, the technology behind it, right, is very useful in a lot of situations. So I don't think it's going to disappear, right? I genuinely do think it's here to stay. Um, will it become Ready Player One? Unlikely, but yeah, potentially, right? It could be a long time, but before you get that, it'll be a while. But I think a lot of the mechanics that are currently being played around with is what we will see, happening in a lot of different varieties. And yeah, if that therefore does become more DAO related, I think from a community perspective, that's fantastic, right? Because yeah, all of these DAOs need to be managed, right? How do you get people voting? One of the hardest parts. You've created this DAO, you've got a whole war chest, loads of money, and then there's like, I don't know, less than 50 people actually engaged with the voting process, ensuring that what's the next thing that needs to be done, and where should we invest the money, what else should we build, and all of that kind of stuff. So I think that's the hardest part, right? Getting people involved and keeping them entertained in a way, and keeping them up to date with what's happening, and yeah, that's the hardest part of community building. So yeah, I think that does need a lot of work, but that's why we've got community professionals, like ourselves, now kind of looking into that, area and seeing what's possible. Yeah. I think it's a really exciting kind of like area to work in, for sure.
Yeah, cool. I think you'll be a big added value in professionalizing this and in making this, I would say, more user friendly for the community and making it feel more like a home
Yeah, well,
instead
that's
of
it, right?
pure technology. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And then once it kind of comes out of the the investor sphere and more down to the actual creatives and fans, I think you'll have a lot more of a chance of that than kind of like where a lot of it still was, where it was very much an investment kind of community. People who are trying to make a quick buck and move from project to project to project. It's almost impossible to keep those kind of people because they're looking for value. They're not looking for what you're actually doing. And yeah, that's a big difference. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so we end up at our last question, Vincent. And this is one I ask to every guest. This is basically if you were asked tomorrow to help a new business, a new giffgaff, for example, to create a community from scratch, how would your first 30 days look like?
Oh gosh, I mean that's very much just looking at what the business does, right? Really understanding the nitty gritty of what the business is trying to sell, what's its product, what's its service, how does it all fit together. That's the first 30 days for sure. And after that you can start uncovering the opportunities that are there, right? What are people within the business open to, right? How far are they interested in actually getting random people off the street involved in whatever they're doing. If you can get past that barrier, then you're opening up a lot of fun stuff, right? So yeah, if people are genuinely interested in creating the space as well as the funding to support kind of like real help and interest from a community, then then you're on the right route, right? And then from there you can build out whatever it is that you like, however you want to support that with technology, people, and all of that kind of good stuff. But the initial interest is really kind of like, all right, well, why, right? What's the purpose, right? What's the point of all of these? You want to collect a whole bunch of people, all right, what for, right? Let's look at that first. Let's really figure out why you're interested in a community and how are they going to actually make an impact on what you do. If that's not there, then it's not much sense in starting a community, because people will get disillusioned with the kind of promises that you made, and they kind of show up and there's not much to do other than ask a customer service question, and then that's going to be hard building a community like that.
You've been hired as a customer service representative. You just
That's
don't know
it.
it yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you very much, Vincent, for this talk. I wish you the best of luck in your future DAO endeavors and everything with standing on giants. And I'm
Thank you
sure we
very much.
meet again quite soon in London or maybe the Netherlands.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you very much for having me. And hope you have a great day.
Have a great day, Vincent.
Thank you so much for listening to the World Class Community Show. If you liked this episode, make sure to subscribe to our channel on your preferred podcast platform. Looking forward to inspire you again on the next show.